So we're back in Sweden. You're probably wondering, Matt, why are you in Sweden? Well, most of you, if you've been on my channel for some time, noticing the hat that I'm wearing, would put two and two together and say, wow, he's back in Sweden to take again a look at the CV90. Yes, I have been honored again to come back to BAE Systems here in Sweden and look at the CV90 program in all its glory, its people, the vehicle itself, the weapon systems, and also clients and customers, I think, of the weapon system, which we're actually going to be looking at today. Now, I'm not sure where I'm going to place this footage. Of course, I have a lot of content that I'm going to roll through, but I thought I'd at least make a little bit of a B-roll set here, so we can at least kind of introduce the week as it starts. It is Tuesday today. I am very, very tired. I've been traveling yesterday. I don't even know what time it is anymore. For about 24 hours. It was actually a very good trip. The trip was really smooth, but shuttle hopping from Calgary to Heathrow to Stockholm and then Skellefteå, it's a lot of travel. But I want to remind everyone again from BAE Systems to know that I am so thankful of this trip, second trip, 2 trips, folks, and it means the world to me. So we're going to get into some really cool activities this week, some which I may be able to show, some which I may not be able to show due to obviously an NDA, but this is kind of just an introduction to throw it out there that is what I'm getting up to. And as you can see by these very ominous looking female ski patrol here, I'm staying at the hotel in Skellefteå where we're about to head out after breakfast to head to the range and take a look at the CV90. Now, what's the details of all of that? In all honesty, I'm just kind of here for the show. I'm just a part of the media group, content creator, to go look at the platform and to just learn more about it, getting further into those layers of the onion that is CV90 and its people that work and support it, which is actually what I'm most excited for. You know, I love working with the platform, the CV90, but it's the people in this group that I am good friends with. I have so much fun hanging around with them. They've got a host of knowledge. I'm like a sponge, just absorbing information from these guys and girls. So I'm looking forward to getting to see the team again this morning. I'm going to go head for lunch and kickstart this day. But as I said, not sure where this footage is going to go, but it's always good to have a little intro as we get going. So let's get into the day and see how the weather looks actually quite nice here in Sweden. It's probably warmer here than it is in Canada. So I'm kind of pumped for that. Last time I was here was in October and it was like 4 or 5 hours of sunlight a day. So I'm quite blessed to have the sun shining on my face right now. Anyway, I'll stop diddly-daddling and talking here and we'll get into it. I'll chat to you in a bit.
So the day started off with a quick introduction to the customers and the team setting up the range, including a quick introduction from Tommy, who is actually the president of BAE Systems Hägglunds. And a little bit later on, you're actually going to see me having an interview with Tommy. It went fantastic. And then we went into the briefs, kind of going over the details of the CV90 Mark III and the 35mm platform with this really nice little brochure, breaking down the details and the timings and this nice little welcome message. But of course, the real detail came to when we were given the guidance on the range itself, with Edvard directing, of course, how the range would be set up. The customers all very excited, including myself wearing, of course, my CV90 hat like many others. It's really nice to see how engaged the audience was to Edvard's speech and how they had set up the range. But of course, the true centerpiece was the CV90 coming out of basically a hidden location in the woodline. Everyone was asked, where is it? Unfortunately, I couldn't see it. I couldn't find it to actually get the initial opening piece where it was in a hull down position. And the only way I did eventually see it was from that EOPS, or EOPS, which is the Electro Optical Panoramic Sight. Basically similar to that of a CITV, or Commander's Independent Thermal Viewer. This actually is telescopic, as you can see it's popping out the top there. But this whole demonstration is a bigger picture here. It's a 2-day demonstration, and this is the CV90 IFV latest build standard, or LBS, Nordic edition. It's a joint program along with Sweden, Norway, Finland, Lithuania, and of course BAE Systems Hägglunds, focused on a standardized configuration and expedited delivery of the newest CV90 infantry fighting vehicle. Now, the live demonstration is focusing on the 35mm main gun and the 7.62mm coaxial machine gun, but also the Spike anti-tank guided missile. There was a number of firing tables of which the CV90 was firing with that beautiful 35mm gun, and of course its programmable ammunition, which we're going to talk about shortly. But it was rather interesting seeing the way in which the vehicle could engage different types of targets, whether it be armoured, infantry, or what you're going to see very shortly is drones. And we got some hands-on experience with firing this shortly too, but the KETF round, which we're about to talk about right here, is basically what it just fired. 5 rounds of that infantry. Let's take a look at the actual details of how the KETF works. So folks, while we got some demonstrations going on here for the CV90 in the background, as you can see they're doing some live fire demonstrations, I thought I'd actually show you the 35mm KETF round here. So this is that programmable ammunition, which I'm going to do a further in-depth review on, and obviously you'll probably see a lot of footage and discussion in the video, but just as some side B-roll footage, it's a hefty round. I'm used to the 30mm for the Radin. It's a long round, as you can see, but this is that programmable ammunition that's basically turning the projectile, instead of an explosion, into kind of a flechette round with tungsten ball bearings. It's basically a flying claymore. And it is being programmed by the 35mm. As it leaves the barrel, 2 rings are programming the projectile to disperse those tungsten pellets at a certain time span of wherever the target is, and it makes a cone of fire. So it's actually making an explosion. It's basically kind of like a big bird shot. Very, very high-tech ammunition. I know it doesn't look very high-tech, but very impressive bit of kit. But like many of you challenge me on my channel and in Armored Warfare of today, drones is the next threat to armor. It's today's worst enemy to any tracked vehicle, of people of any kind in battle, really, let's be honest. And this is the first time I've ever seen a drone being engaged in this kind of configuration, and I have to admit, it was mind-blowing, the accuracy of this system being able to engage, track, fire, and neutralize that size of drone out of the sky. Very, very impressive. And as you saw in the beginning of the video, there was also some kinetic movement shots there with the vehicle on the move, which, I could show you footage all day of this thing, but unfortunately with my particular camera, it's very hard to see that kinetic movement shot. But it did engage both in the static, you're about to see here, and in the moving position. Being able to track and identify something so small and knock out that threat is very, very impressive. And it's seeing it firsthand. It's not just a brochure anymore. It's not just a YouTube video. I saw firsthand this thing being able to engage drones. Very, very impressive. And as the morning continued throughout the demo, more engagements were given to different types of targets, whether it be hard standing, steel, infantry, or penetration values to different targets, which of course I cannot show you the true effects of, but from this footage which I am allowed to show you, you can clearly see 35mm is doing exactly what they want it to do. But I think one of the most exciting portions of this demo that I was looking forward to was the launch of the Spike anti-tank guided missile. I think everyone was pretty much on the edge of their seat waiting for the tube to pop off. As the gunners fired off the last few rounds, they were preparing basically to get the missile launched off the tube. And it was really, really cool to see the system, considering that in the last visit where I was at this range, I was able to look at the other ATGM that was presented on the CV90 program, which of course was the Acheron missile, and the Spike was just as impressive to see launch. Now, interestingly, part of the engagement is a blinding effect using the KTF to engage the target's APS systems or sighting systems to prevent the vehicle from being able to defend itself from the ATGM. When the missile launches, the gunner is also then able to time on when the round will be fired at the target to prevent it from trying to protect itself. Very, very impressive. It's the first time I've ever considered seeing an ATGM used in this kind of configuration. Those 2 rounds bursting in front of it, destroying the APS, and then the missile coming in to take it out. Very, very cool setup. And slowly coming to the end of the demonstration, the vehicle went into moving engagements, demonstrating just how effective that 35mm is at firing on the move. And to summarize the demonstration for the morning, they then went into a demonstration of one of the portions of the defensive aid suite, which of course is the smoke screen, and a very effective smoke screen, one of the best that I've seen. Warrior certainly did not have the same level of expanse of which this smoke screen has. You can see the distance it's covering. The vehicle was able to exfil and pull out of there very, very quickly. Really cool to see a smokescreen like that and that size. And you've got to remember, the CV90 would not be on its own. It would have a number of other vehicles covering for it. But now I want to introduce Tommy, the president of BAE Systems Hägglunds, and a big portion as to why this program is so successful. A very well-respected leader. Let's take a look. Okay, welcome everyone. It's me, Matt, and I'm joined today by Tommy. So Tommy, do you want to maybe just introduce yourself a little bit? Pleasure to meet you.
Hi, my name is Tommy Rask. I'm the president of BAE Systems Hägglunds. We're here today and showing off our product CV90.
Yeah, so as you can see, we've got the beautiful CV90 behind us with a 35mm configuration. We're going to talk a lot more in detail about the vehicle and what it's doing today, but we are at the range, and I thought it'd be a great opportunity to talk to Tommy about, BAE Systems Hägglunds at a higher level. Success of a company comes from both, the top down and the bottom up, and I think a lot of good feedback on yourself, Tommy, from the team, which speaks volumes to how the program's successful. In terms of today, the demonstration and working with your team, you're probably very, very proud of what they're doing. Can you just speak a little bit more to that and kind of your emphasis on the team's efforts?
No, it has been a great performance here today, and so happy with the team. It's not often that it costs quite a lot of money to do a demonstration like this, but extremely well prepared. And I talked to one of the gunners here now that fired his second ATGM missile, and it's so fun to see them enjoying and preparing and do a good show, and also a very good response from the customers here today. I think we have at least 50-60 of them here, and being able to demonstrate what we do. And also, as you alluded to, it's the product is one thing, but I think the culture we have of being a company where everybody's engaged. It's not only business development winning new contract, it's the company winning contract.
Right.
And now in the phase we are, it's now the company that has to deliver on all these commitments. So it's a team effort, and I think it's something that is our strength as well, that we really engage in what we do.
And I think I've spoken to this in many videos I've done on BAE Systems and the CV90 in general. It is the team success. At the end of the day, we are looking at a lot of metal components, electronics, but to put that all together takes a huge amount of effort. And I think your leadership in setting the team into making such an incredible product speaks volumes. So let's just talk a little bit about what's going on today. What is the future of CV90? We've got a lot of developments, a lot of exciting things going on in terms of today and kind of what we have with the customers here. What's the future? What are we looking at for CV90?
I think you need to look at different perspectives. We have a number of ongoing upgrade programs and life extension program. We just ended on with the Swedish customer, delivering some new variants to them with the Mueller mortar system, for example, engineering vehicle and a support vehicle. We have a life extension ongoing in Finland. We have basically the program, the result you see today, ongoing in Netherlands. We have a life extension ongoing in Switzerland. So that is, say, the existing customer base where we're supporting, upgrading, maintaining capability. Then we have the new contract with the Mark IVs with Czech and Slovak, where we are welding the first chassis hulls are welded, starting assembly as we speak, and setting up production lines both in Czech and Slovak. And then recently the Mark III Charlie order that Sweden to replace vehicles that was gifted to Ukraine, Denmark joining in, and some vehicles to Ukraine as well.
For sure.
And then we see the next initiatives of the very short-term demand that's happening now due to the situation we are. The pressure from Russia will continue, their aggressions, and we see money coming to the table. And there we have the initiative with, say, we call it CV90 Nordics, but I think we can add the Baltics
For sure.
to that as well, where we talk of an imminent need of, say, the coming years of at least a number of hundreds of additional CV90 Mark IVs. So there are different perspectives. At the same time, we are spending quite a lot of R&D and looking even beyond that point of a continuous development of CV90, and I think the advantage of these 10 customers that I describe are in different phases of the lifetime. They will continue to upgrade, they share experience, they share the cost of development. So I think that is one of the real advantages is the close relationship to these 10 customers,
Right.
that they share the experience between themselves, but with us, and we can continue to develop the CV90 product.
Okay. And, today we had an incredible demonstration of CV90's ability to take out drones. Now, I know a lot of you in my comments and watching my content speak to, well, the armored fighting vehicle is redundant. We don't need it in the future because drones can take out everything. I think I'm an advocate to say that is completely ridiculous, particularly when you see a demonstration of this 35mm and the CV90 being able to take out a drone, which you're going to see in some of my footage. But Tommy, can you speak a little bit more to, that threat? We know it's an ever-presence of drones, and we know CV90 can handle it. Do you think this is going to expand further and further, and more systems are going to be adapted to take out drones in the future?
Yeah, I think so, because I think you need to look, you always talked about the protection onion.
Right.
When you talked about, now if you translate that onion thinking over to drones, I think what we saw here today was the main gun 35 programmable airburst munition taking down the drone.
Mm-hmm.
I think then you have them on distance. You have the ability in the vehicle with the active protection system, and then you also have the jamming part. So I think the individual vehicle is capable of something, but I think the most important that the customer need to think about, and I think that's something we hear from Ukraine as well, is that what is your battlefield management system? How do I share the threat information of drones? How do I use my activators? Because if you look in the platoon or something, if you share this information, you have an enormous capability.
Exactly, yeah.
Because it's not, you can see this one. One-on-one drones are fairly easy, but if they come in swarm, then you need to coordinate in time and with the effectors. So, but also the sensor suite, you talked about it, that you have all these different sensors that was built in the beginning to serve one system. I think we as a system integrator, what we is doing is to stitch the system together, use them for different, and I think that is something that will continue to develop to meet these new threats.
For sure. So, it's exciting, honestly, just being able to see a system like this being utilized against drones firsthand, because the drone world is quite new to me. In Afghanistan, using Warrior, drones weren't really a threat to me. It was more the underside than the top side. However, BAE Systems Hägglunds are pushing hard to counter that drone threat. So for those of you who are saying armored fighting vehicles and infantry fighting vehicles are useless, I think we've both safely said that that's not going to be the future. One last question for you, Tommy. So this is an exciting time for BAE Systems Hägglunds. Expansion is probably high in your kind of priority list. Lots of work coming, lots of good business coming. What's the look for expansion of your company in terms of assets or people?
We have the last 3 years, I would say, now gone from just below 800 up to 2,234, I think it was last week. So people on board to be able to deliver, but also investment. We're investing more than $300 million into the business of expansion of offices, production capability of that. But then, as I also alluded to earlier, is that earlier it was called offset or industrial participation. I think the production concept we have, where we do a lot together with partners, has given us an enormous capability to expand faster than some of our competitors that want to do everything in-house. Because I think we need to look at a wider perspective now with the threat situation, and the need is that we need to cooperate more, we need to work with partners and find the capability to really grow.
For sure. Well, folks, this is an honor to be able to interview Tommy today. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you.
For making the success of this program and for making a team that is so robust as they are to keep it doing what it needs to do. And we're going to go through some more demonstrations and examples of what the CV90 can do today. But again, Tommy, thank you for your time today.
More than welcome. Thanks.
At this point, it was time for us to get into the vehicle and fire the main gun and those 35mm rounds. And I took the opportunity to see if I could hold an entire belt of these things. They are hefty as heck, but they gave me a bit of a challenge. The ammunition guy, the guy in the background, the guy who works in the scenes that people don't see, I took a huge respect for him and his work during the week. If without his work, you can't shoot the weapon system. So the ammo guy gets a big shout out from me, and yes, they were heavy. I was braving my face there holding that ammunition. It is not lightweight. But sometimes I like looking into the details of things, and putting ammunition together, although what you may think as being benign, is very important, particularly if you're a crew member of these vehicles. It's something that you have to do as a gunner, commander, driver. You work as a team putting this ammunition together, so I thought I'd help out this gentleman putting the ammunition into its configurations for the various shoots that the customer and that I would be shooting throughout the day. And it's not as simple as it looks. In theory it is, it's basically just using a tool to pry open the couplings and the belt and put the rounds together or split them apart. But you can really hurt yourself if you're not using these tools properly. Thankfully I got the hang of it fairly quickly, but there is a process and a method to this kind of madness of putting these belts together, and if you do it wrong you could lose a finger, which was very highly reinforced from this gentleman. And once again, thank you, sir, for guiding me through this process. It was a lot of fun. I like putting ammunition together. I'm a fond part of the background processes. It's not always the spotlight and the glamorous side of putting rounds downrange that needs to be looked at. So I kind of enjoyed putting the belts together and kind of setting them up in the various configurations of ammo that they needed for the shoots. But of course, once that was done, it was time to actually get inside the vehicle and put some rounds downrange. And I was so pumped as I slowly walked over to the vehicle and the crew to once again get inside CV90 and fire that trigger. Hello!
Hello.
How's it going?
Yeah, it's good.
Good.
Hold up.
Please. Oh. Thank you kindly. There we go. Perfect.
Good?
Good.
So, you can go on target.
Okay.
You have one white target in front of you.
Okay.
The safety is off.
Okay.
Don't forget to measure laser on that button.
Okay, so LRF there and then triggers at the back.
Yeah.
Palm switches, if I take them off, I have to relays, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And then engaging the white target and the black? Or just the white target?
Okay, so let's do this. Two shots on the white target.
Yep.
Then you switch to one of the black targets, fire on one, and then you do a single shot on both of the black targets.
Perfect.
So 3 targets.
Sounds
4
good.
shots.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Electrical safety is off. You're good to fire.
Okay. Blazing. Firing now.
Good hit.
Firing now.
Good hit. Oh, no.
Little show, yeah. Firing now.
Good hit.
Beautiful. Firing now.
Good hit.
Beautiful.
Electrical safety is on.
Okay. That was awesome. Thanks, dude. Of course, I was like a kid in a candy shop inside of that turret. Had so much fun, particularly when I'm actually hitting targets around good people. It was a good time, and I was able to interact with some more members of the BAE Systems team, and one of those members, a good friend of mine, Tarkin. I was able to get some time to do a quick interview with him, which is very important because he's a big part of this program. Okay, so welcome back, everyone. We're now talking to a familiar face you may recognize from my previous video when coming to Sweden BAE Systems. Tarkin, do you want to introduce yourself again to those who may not know?
Of course I will. Hello. So my name is Tarkin Turkshan. I'm the CV90 Platform Director at BAE Systems Hägglunds. Now I've been doing this for 3 years now, and before that 32 years of military service within the Royal Netherlands Army and working with that vehicle since 2002.
So when you want to talk about subject matter experts, this is your guy, okay? And the reason I wanted to talk to Tarkin today is because, well, first of all, there's some really exciting content to review, but Tarkin is obviously the guy who knows the ins and outs of what today's about, but also the turret on this system and the overall vehicle. But I was able to just fire the 35mm. Incredible system.
It's something else.
It is something else. The 35 really adds that little bit more punch, but also another really cool other types of features. Do you want to just talk a little bit more on the 35mm, Tarkin?
Yeah, so if we talk 35 compared to a 30, then already on the AP rounds, it's way more effective. I mean, if you just look at the size of these rounds in between, so the powder that it carries, so the punch is a lot harder.
Yeah.
But a special feature on this gun is actually its KTF ammunition, which stands for kinetic energy time fused ammo. So what it does is the round gets programmed at the end of the barrel, and then it opens up at a certain set distance in front of the target, where it releases 408 little tungsten pellets, which always come out in the same way. So you can use it on white targets, which means there the gunner just aims at the center of the target. He selects white, laces, fires, and the gun will automatically fire 5 rounds in a certain pattern to just take out that whole area.
Nice.
And it will do that at any difference. And it does that at any kind of target. So a white target, point target, like a tank when you want to take out its sights or anything else, or a foxhole, or a deep target, so if a column is coming. And now comes the fun part. You can fire these rounds unprogrammed, and that's what we call a penetration round.
Right.
And then it's actually quite armor piercing as well. So it's a very good system to have, and it makes sure that you only need to carry 2 types of rounds.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. And the other really exciting thing we got to see today was the Spike LR missile, which is my favorite anti-tank guided missile. I've done a video on it in the past, and I got to see it live fire today, which was incredible. But a feature that Tarkin actually presented this morning, which I didn't really think about much. When you think of ATGMs, and you had mentioned it, a tank engagement from an IFV with just an ATGM is suicide. You're basically not designed to take out a tank. With Spike, you have beyond visual range, line of sight targetry, so you can actually launch the missile and observe beyond, say, a wood line to engage a tank. But the thing that Tarkin mentioned that kind of spoke to me, which I've never really thought about, and I'm not sure why, is if you did have to engage a tank, what you first want to do is be able to blind the active protection system it may have with some of those KTF rounds.
Yes.
Then, in the theory of the missile just being launched, have it then punch the target afterwards, because APS could somehow potentially take out an ATGM. If you punch it with KTF, it's blind, its APS is gone, its imagery, its sensors. I mean, for instance, the EOS, also the EOP, the EOPS. So that is kind of like the CITV of the kind of American world, observing the area. If that's taken out on an enemy tank with the KTF rounds before that ATGM comes in, there's no hope in hell of it surviving. So that was something I never really thought about. I just thought, old school 80s tech, you know, kind of like a tow. Oh, I see a tank, IFV, I'll launch it. Well, yeah, you might get lucky in those days, but not anymore. So do you maybe want to speak a little bit more to that, Tarkin?
Yeah, it's all about time, actually. Missiles are good, they're accurate, but they take time. They're not so fast. Now, a KTF round flies about 1,000 meters a second, which means, approximately 4 times or more the speed of that missile. So what you do is the moment you launch the missile, the other operator gets the turret, and since you already aimed at the target, you immediately pump out 2 KTFs on that target, and they will always arrive before the missile gets there.
Right.
So that's the whole trick. So on the other side, you just hear, boop, 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 you're blind, and suddenly then it's game over.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And what I also found really fascinating with the CV90 I just fired is its tracking, right? And I know this sounds kind of peculiar, but you'd think, oh, turrets are very nicely smooth. Some turrets that I've worked with before are very janky, they move around. Tracking onto targets with that turret it's like butter. It's literally nice and smooth. When you're letting go of the palm switches or transferring between inside the turret, there's no sort of, which is a big deal. Whereas particularly when you're engaging targets from long distance, that minute detail or adjustment is quite important. And I have to admit that turret is very impressive, and the amount of features it has in it. Can you explain just a couple of other major features that this particular kind of turret would have?
Yeah, so for example, talking about using the control handle, is that the system helps you aim as well. So the moment you have, for example, a moving target, and you have a preset speed because you're following or tracking the target, the moment you lace, the turret knows the speed, and it will, okay, I'll help you out there.
Right.
So you can slow it down or you can speed it up, but the moment you come back into that certain angle, it will keep the speed of that target.
Nice.
Now, the moment you select air target, now the world changes. So what happens is you see something flying, you select flying target, follow the target, you lace, and now suddenly the laser starts to pulsate. So it's actually calculating a 3D flight path instead of just a lead angle.
Wow.
And then it's just a matter of follow, fire, 2 rounds come out, and there you go. I mean, the UTAS, this sighting system, has already been in use since the 90s.
Right.
Made just for that. Air targeting.
Right.
So we've been firing at drones, fixed wings, it doesn't matter. It will take it down.
Nice. And I think that's probably one of the biggest features today that I've taken away is not just the Spike LR, because it's super cool, but the anti-drone capability. A lot of you in the comments, and rightly so with what you see around in the world, drones are the future, taking out armored fighting vehicles. Platforms like CV90 and its capability of knocking out drones, which I literally just watched happen live, is game-changing. It's a big deal. Like, is that still something that's going to progress forward into the future of CV90?
Oh, for sure, definitely.
Yeah.
Because what you see now is that the commander side, it has an auto-detection and an auto-tracking.
Right.
So actually, you're not the one actually spotting the target anymore. The system will do it for you. It will recognize it. It will tell you there's something, and it's up to you if you want to kill it or not.
Right.
So it's the human in the loop who actually decides to pull the trigger or not. Now, talking about those control handles, some additional nice little feature it has.
Yeah.
You remember your old headset where you had to talk like that or push a button?
Yeah.
Not anymore.
It's all in the set.
It's in the set.
Nice.
If you want to change your camera settings, anything, no additional panels. No, it's a little thumb panel where you switch through a menu and change all the settings.
Nice.
So it has a lot of additional features. And talking about the missile, there's no third control in there for the missile. No, it's the same control handle that just starts talking missile language instead.
Yeah. So there's so much modularity, and I know my channel love me saying modular, but there's so much modularity into that control handle. There's a lot of buttons, but it's not complicated. It's not rocket science. Everything in one handle instead of the old sort of secondary handle on the side doesn't make sense. I really like the fact it's been integrated to do an all-in-one purpose system where you can target, engage, missile, whatever you want in one control handle. It's very, very handy. So as you can see, CV90 is about to leave here, so we're cleaning up for the day. Tarkan, thank you again for first of inviting me and for showcasing the vehicle and giving some information.
Always welcome.
So yeah, we're going to clean up for the day, and I'll get some more footage out here, and we'll go about going into the rest of the week. So as the last round went downrange and the empty casings hit the floor, it was time for us to clean up and put the vehicles to bed for the night. It was a very rewarding and humbling day. It really brought me back to my roots of armor. As I'm an artillery guy today, active serving, it really kind of made me feel happy again, being around those who really had a passion for armored fighting vehicles. And as we took the vehicles back to the sheds to tuck them in for the night, it was very rewarding to know that I'm around people who have the same sense of care and engagement to these kind of platforms, because they do care. It's not just a piece of equipment to them. They believe in it. I believe in it, and it was really nice to be involved in such a impressive demonstration for the day. But of course, like anything with BAE Systems, they had a plan for me to do a little bit of work hard, play hard setting, because the team do work very hard, and when they're done for the day, they also like to play hard, and they booked us to go look at a hockey game, and it was so much fun being able to go see a Swedish hockey game in the local area. Unfortunately, it wasn't the local team of which most of the BAE Systems team support, but it was still really cool to be able to go to the event, have a look at some hockey, and of course, Canada being in its own realm of hockey, very different style of hockey, honestly. The supporting effort of this game was incredible. Drums playing all the time, flags going all the time. I haven't seen a hockey game like that at this kind of level before, so it was really cool to see the teams so much involved in this sport. I had a great time. That was a fantastic evening. But as day 2 came around, I was able to get a bit of an exclusive look at the vehicle on my own, showcasing some of the features that I wasn't able to look at last time when I did my other visit. On my last visit, I was giving kind of an overall review and look at some of the details of the vehicle, but this time I zeroed in on some of the more specific items that I was more fascinated in, that I hadn't really looked at before or even was aware of. And before I was able to create this little review for you, I decided to go to a tactical store, literally called The Tactical Store, to grab some M90 Swedish camouflage pattern jacket to allow me to do this video. And the store was super cool. It was in the middle of nowhere. Thanks again to Jespers for taking me to get that jacket. Me and him basically had to drive out from the range and go to this store, but it was just so unique that this tiny little village of about 200 people had this store called the Tactical Store there. Had some really unique stuff in there, but let's get into some of the details of the CV90 exclusive look. Okay, so I got some time to myself a little bit to actually just showcase this beautiful vehicle behind me. And as you can see, I'm in M90 camo, which I think is one of the coolest camouflages out there. I actually bought myself my own little Swedish jacket at a tactical store, which I'll show you some footage of later. But as you can see here, we have the CV90 Mark III, and with that 35mm above me right here, and being able to fire it live, being able to interact and even talk to some of the customers looking into the vehicle is pretty incredible. As always, I'm blessed to have the opportunity to be here with BAE Systems Hägglunds, and when you start getting into the details of the vehicle, walking around it, and I just walked on top of the turret there and got some footage, and which I'm going to be showing you shortly here, but things like the EOPS, for me on Warrior, we had no capability of that. We're talking about very different technology, different timelines, but I can't kind of emphasize the importance of having a system like that on top of the turret, because it gives you so much flexibility, whether it be via
situational awareness, what's coming and what's around your vehicle, whether it be your own troops dismounting from the infantry fighting vehicle, drones, and then targets. We talked a little bit about the Spike LR being launched from this system. Everything works together flawlessly. And, I think a lot of people that saw the vehicle in the last couple of days would probably agree on that. The things that really stand out for me, though, is that, situational awareness, not only for visuals, but also for drones, right? So you have the APS systems on there, and they're becoming more and more prominent on infantry fighting vehicles that we see today. And CV90, I think, is really tackling that head on, right? BAE Systems are very aware that drones are that contributing threat out in the modern warfare today. And they've not really skipped around it. It's they know it's an extremely dedicated threat to vehicles of this kind. And all the other little things that you don't really think about, things like the exhaust coming out the back of the vehicle for sound and heat. Storage is a big deal. The presentation that was given to me by Tarkin and the rest of the team here emphasized on the layers of options that you can put on this vehicle. And for me, I know storage sounds a little benign, but I've worked with the infantry, armored infantry. I know that they want space and things to store on that vehicle. So if you don't have room to put things on and you've got all these gizmos and gadgets and then you've got nowhere to put your equipment, it's kind of redundant. Every inch of CV90 is tailored to be useful, right? There's no waste. Very efficient. The Swedish are very good at being efficient with everything they do, and particularly in the engineering world. And CV90, I think, is certainly the pinnacle of that. You're not going to find an inch on this vehicle that has a reason or a purpose. And I know this sounds, again, absolutely redundant, but every single portion of the vehicle has anti-slip that makes sense. Anti-slip is basically just a skid, grit on top of the vehicle. I've seen a lot of accidents of people on infantry fighting vehicles, armored vehicles in general, where there's just straight steel, straight aluminum that people are slipping off. Every little portion of where you think you should step has anti-skid. As I was kind of going around the vehicle, I was like, I don't have to worry about getting up and down. I can quickly get up and down. And again, I know that sounds extremely benign and stupid, but it's not. If your crew commander is tired, exhausted, coming out of the turret, out of the cupola, and isn't able to step down effectively off the vehicle and slip and break the leg, there goes your crew commander. So, just the little tiny details now. My last video when we came back 2 years ago talked about the overall CV90 platform. But now I'm getting into the more specifics because I don't think we talk about it enough, right? Rubber tracks, as you can see right here. I've worked with steel tracks, right? Warrior, it's loud, it's obnoxious, and it's not enjoyable for vibration. I've talked about this in other videos as well. Rubber track makes a huge difference. And in fact, so much of a difference that as I was helping Andreas, who is the ammunition guy that I'm going to show a picture of right now, by the way, thank you for helping me set up ammunition for the range. I was helping unload some stores, and I didn't even know CV90 was coming down the road into this compound until literally it was about 50 feet away from us. So with Warrior, you're going to hear that what we call track slap or track bash as it comes down the road, that clanking, that metallic sound. With the rubber, you're hearing a little squeak as it comes around the corner, but that's it. Again, I know the little things you don't think count much, but they do, because rubber tracks have so much more efficiency. And I'll be dead honest with you, I was skepticism on rubber tracks when they first came out, or, when I started researching them, saying, no, I'm a metal track guy. No, it just makes sense. A lot of you have debated on rubber track of, well, it must be very difficult to repair. It's not. And in fact, Tarkin had a very good example of how they had to cut the track one time with a Sawzall, literally just a DIY from your home hardware store, Sawzall, to cut it off and then re-strap it together. Really, really cool. So we're going to get more into the detail as I kind of do a walk around of the vehicle with some narration here, but I just wanted to introduce, the vehicle in its glory behind me here, of course, with the M90 pattern. And as we get into the details, I just want you to remember that we need to start looking at these vehicles with a more fine-tooth comb, right? The last video, as I said, very high level. One thing I did notice, which was kind of surprising to me, is that the coaxial machine gun on this vehicle has to be loaded externally. Something I think some people will debate is a problem. I don't think it's a problem, but I think it's something certainly to consider in the future, because if you have a stoppage or you do need to reload, obviously dismounting and getting out of the vehicle creates some concerns there. Obviously in an urban environment, even more so. With this particular platform, that barrel is able to actually angle even higher. So if you're in an urban setting with this vehicle, it's very much, I would say, accustomed to being in an urban environment compared to certain other platforms around the world.
because if you do have the ability for the main barrel to go up as well as the coaxial meeting that same angle of elevation, which when you're in urban environments, you want to be able to track and engage targets in windows and high-level buildings. The vehicle can do that. Okay, so here we are at that coaxial machine gun. Okay, so I was just informed by Jesper, who's hosting me this week, that the actual super elevation of the chain gun can go higher than the main gun, which is a big deal. Like I said, in an urban environment, you don't really want to be using your main gun in engagements of buildings or close environments, because shrapnel, blast wave, infantry don't like 35mm rounds being blasted right in front of their faces. However, with this guy being able to go even higher on a separate trunnion than the main gun, that gives you a lot of flexibility, not just for urban environments, but for, as we've talked many times before, drones, aircraft. 7.62mm machine gun, probably a range of up to about 1,000 to 1,200 meters if you're effective, particularly in an armored configuration. With that elevation there, it gives you so much more flexibility. However, as I mentioned, everything's being maintained from the external. Majority of the maintenance of the gun is being done from the external portion of the vehicle. There is obviously a charging handle and the ability for you to operate the machine gun inside the turret. But if you are using this particular machine gun, you are going to have to load it externally. And again, many people will debate, well, that's a huge problem. I don't think so. For you to chew through this much ammunition, you're probably going to have to reload a lot more than just the chain gun, particularly your dismounts. Supporting an armored attack or an armored infantry attack with that much coax going down range, your infantry are probably going to be exhausted and needing a supply anyway. So not a huge concern from my part. The only problem I would have is if there is a kind of a hard extract or a stoppage, a gas stoppage, that's going to have you actually interact with the internals of the machine gun. But again, you do have the main gun to help you. The other interesting fact about this platform is it does have, you can put fragmentation grenades inside of your smoke poppers, or not the actual smoke poppers, but that basically are throwing fragmentation around the vehicle. Very, very useful for in a kind of overrun situation where your infantry dismounts are maybe a little further away from where you need to be. And you're kind of getting ambushed, you have that fragmentation to protect you. But again, as we saw at the top here, right, with the EOPS just there, situational awareness, that should never happen. You should never really have a situation where you're being overrun by infantry. A lot of you have debated about, Molotov cocktail can take out an armored fighting vehicle. Yeah, very much so. But again, if you know they're there with all these cameras around the vehicle, you're not going to be able to get them that close. A lot of smoke capability as well, right? A big part of being an engagement, particularly when you're going against armor, if you're an infantry fighter vehicle, is just get the hell out of dodge. With that smoke set up there, you have 2 pops, so you can fire first salvo to kind of give you a primary extraction, and then if you're still being engaged, you could probably give it a secondary. But very low profile vehicle, so that smoke cover, unlike some of the taller IFVs, is protecting you for a lot longer than I would say the bumbling heavy duty vehicles of other nations. The UTAS there, so you got the sighting system for the gunner, again, very advanced, extremely useful for taking out drones. I've seen through the sights of how vivid and clear they are. It's like 4K streaming on your computer there. It's very, very clear, which is very important, particularly if you've got all this fantastic hardware, all these different weapon systems, and you can't see the target very well. I've used battle group thermal imaging on Warrior. Again, we're comparing apples to oranges, but if you don't have very clear imagery to engage your targets, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to ensure the threat is gone. And another big part of that is recognition of friendlies, right? I have heard situations of the optics on certain armored fighting vehicles not being clear enough to even identify our only friendly forces. So I can safely say the sighting on this is well up to par in modern standards. We do have other systems here as well. Our laser warning receiver there is kind of letting know beam riders are attacking. The system, I think I've talked about in my previous video, has an automatic mode or semi-automatic mode. So the turret will actually traverse and swing onto that beam rider that is trying to engage you, which is a big deal, particularly with ATGMs of today, allowing the commander and the gunner to kind of reduce their workload if they are being engaged. The turret will swing to that target, and then it's up to obviously the gunner and the commander to identify what they need to shoot and fire back. Because once again, and I hate to say it, sometimes there are situations where friendlies are playing around with lasers and start lasing our own vehicles. I am in the observation post. I have to say there's been times where we use laser equipment in the artillery or accidentally lasing our own vehicles. And with a system like this, you're going to scare some people. So you have to be very careful when you have it on that kind of automatic mode. It's still up to the commander to determine whether to engage or not, but it's still reducing that workload and, you know, threat and risk to the crew by allowing the turret to do a little bit more work for you, which is a big deal. You've got a lot of systems inside of this vehicle that take a lot of mental strength to keep going, but I think there's a lot of automation inside of here that's reducing that workload. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on this coax because I think it's kind of a unique feature that you don't see in many other AFVs and IFVs around the world. So let's take a look at some other stuff. But of course the trip would not be complete if I couldn't have at least a little drive of one, and I did ask if I can get a quick spin in the CV90 Armadillo, which is the latest build standard for the CV90's APC or modular. Different variants and configurations for the platform, whether it be logistics, support, recovery, mortar, ambulance. This can basically be transitioned into whatever you want. And I'll safely say this thing drives like an absolute Cadillac. I know I keep comparing to Warrior, but in terms of things like even CVRT that I've driven or Krav, all the bigger, heavier duty vehicles, they all drive very janky compared to this vehicle, and a lot of you have been asking me about those rubber tracks, and as I'm about to take it for a spin, I can safely say it navigates terrain very well, and even in the snow and the icy conditions, those rubber tracks do exactly what you need them to do. I had absolutely no complaints. A very smooth and enjoyable ride with the driver, who the young lady who gave me the opportunity to ride on the vehicle, guided me through very nicely. She was a very, very nice commander as I was able to take this for a spin. So let's get into it.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yep.
Perfect. Do you feel ready to start?
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Yeah. And one thing I forgot to tell you, when we are releasing the parking brake, I don't want you to hold on to the steering.
Okay.
Then we can do a centrum turn.
Okay.
Yeah. Perfect. But we can start the engine.
Okay.
Press and hold the button.
Okay. Yeah, it's all loose. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Bringing back memories. I used to drive Warrior. Yeah, it's nowhere near as cool as this though. It handles so well. Yeah. So I wanted to get into a bit of this footage and give you some of my direct feedback on driving this vehicle. There is so much on-demand power. I was barely touching the gas pedal, and in terms of traversing this terrain, it may seem very flat and barely any bumps, but there is actually some nasty little ruts, and the suspension was beautiful. And as we transition across this track, no slippage from those rubber tracks, on-demand power, ready to go. Normally with larger vehicles like this, you tend to have a little bit of turbo lag, a little bit of spool up to get that energy going, similar to Warrior, and also quite quiet. When you're putting your foot down to cross a bit of terrain like that or traversing a track, the turbo sound from the Warrior, although sounds badass, in terms of a stealth capacity and, you know, not showing off your position as much as you can, it was fairly quiet. And I was respectful to my commander. I've been in that position. I didn't gun it. I wanted to on this straight, just absolutely floor it. I was barely putting about 2 inches of gas pedal down on this drive. Honestly, I was barely giving the CV90 any challenge, but I, out of respect, didn't want to gun it, but I could tell how much energy this vehicle wanted to push out. Extremely fun, very impressive. Thank you. That was awesome. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Perfect.
Very
Great.
good.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. And that concluded my direct interaction with the CV90 and the team. However, I was blessed to be able to get the opportunity to present to the BAE Systems Hägglunds team at their headquarters in Osnabrück, which was such a privilege to be able to speak to why I believe in this program and how much respect I have for the team that produced this incredible platform and other vehicles that they produce, including this absolutely gorgeous vehicle, which I think you all know what it is. It is just so nice to see these vehicles traveling along the road here in the local town of Osnabrück, and just again, the community loves BAE Systems. It's almost like they're just an integral part of the society that's there, and I really like seeing some of the other military vehicles that are kind of plodding along, a very busy hive of activity. But the presentation was a lot of fun. Thanks again for Attire for Effect, the clothing brand that I'm sponsored by, for providing some stickers to give to the employees of BAE Systems Hägglunds. Now, the presentation I can't show you in its entirety, or the actual event itself, but it was really, really good fun. I think we had close to 200 people show up with sandwiches and kind of having me speak and present to the audience about, you know, what is my channel all about? Why am I here? Why do I believe in CV90? Why is it that I've been given 2 opportunities and being honored to be in front of them on that day to present? And it was just really nice to share my passion for the program, even though I'm not building the vehicles, I'm not driving them, I'm not even operating them at a military level or even as a customer. I feel like I'm part of that BAE Systems Hägglunds family, and I actually presented them with my own little, you know, Matsimus channel plaque, my artillery emblem there in Canadian British flags, and of course my artillery fuses to kind of say thank you. And once again, to everyone who made this a success, the demo days, the hockey games, yes, was all the team, thank you so much. And for you, for participating and watching to the end of this video. I know it's a long one, but there was so much to squeeze into this video, and I'm glad that I was able to get as much visualization and content to this platform and the people that make it as it deserves. And I hope you enjoyed the video today. And if you did, not only should you try and like and comment on this video, but go check out the social media pages of BAE Systems Hägglunds. They have their YouTube pages, their Instagram, all that good stuff. In fact, just recently, there has been a video released from BAE Systems Hägglunds of the CV90 120, the 120mm gun placed on top of the CV90. And I'm going to be doing a video on that, of that review from Tarkin in the near future, so I'm looking forward to doing that. But this is a really important collaboration between myself and BAE Systems, and I think it's only fair that I showcase their ability to, you know, present their products on their own social media and their platforms. And they did such an incredible job of showcasing it to their customers for this week that I was able to visit, that it's only fair that you check out their content yourselves and see what other kind of things that may interest you. So thank you again for watching. Thank you again, BAE Systems. I know I've probably said it 100 times in this video, but I really cannot express how much it means as a content creator to be able to be invited to a session of this kind. And hopefully again I'll be able to come visit and take another look at some other platforms in the future. Maybe the CV90 120, just saying. Folks, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and let's hope for the future CV90 continues rolling forward as strong as ever. All the best. Bye-bye.